Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Bo Martonic here, back for another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast. Day after turkey season opener here in Pennsylvania. It was an interesting one, to say the least. I decided to head out Friday night. The opener was on Saturday here, and decided to drive out and just one kind of remote area in the Pennsylvania Wilds region, and just set up the truck tent. So I have that James Brood USA truck tent that did a podcast on a while back. Set that up. It goes up in about 60 seconds. Do my sleeping bag up there. Got all that together. Got my turkey stuff together. Cooked up some dinner. Went to listen for some birds. Well, it ended up feeling like I was in the high country of Colorado before a storm rolls in with how windy it was. You couldn't hear a thing, and it was blowing some rain around, and actually ended up getting a little bit of snow overnight. But anyway, so I wasn't able to locate any birds, the night before. And woke up early in the morning. Was ready at the spot I was going to be, hiking into, so that was pretty ideal. And was moving out towards this point. I had found some gobblers there. I actually talked about it on here. I called some in with my mouth like 3 weeks ago or so. And these birds, I didn't know where they were roosting at, because when I found them the last time, it was about 11 in the morning, so they could have went a long ways by then. But I figured I'd go out towards this point, and a little bit before the point, it kind of goes off into a saddle, and there's some pine trees there. So I was kind of wondering if they'd be roosted in that, but really wasn't sure. So as I was moving out, just kind of taking my time, didn't want to push too far in, as it was starting to get closer to the point where they could probably see me. And I was moving in a little bit later than I wanted to, but I really don't know if I could have, navigated it without my headlamp, as I was pretty unfamiliar with the area. So I don't know, it was about 20 after 6. I heard what I thought was a gobble. And again, it's so windy, I couldn't hear, much of anything. And so I pulled out a box call. I just got a new Rocky Mountain hunting box call in. It's all waterproof, so you don't need any chalk or anything. And kind of retired my old Primos that I loved that call, but trying out this new one. Hit it a couple times, and right away, double gobble. There was two gobblers there. But the one kind of sounded like it wasn't a full gobble. Maybe it was a Jake. Maybe it was a 2-year-old. I really wasn't sure. So I don't care about turkeys. I'll shoot any gobbler. Besides, I really don't like to shoot Jakes, and try not to. I have nothing against anybody that does. My own goal and preference is to shoot a longbeard. So I just shut up at that point once they answered me once. They knew I was there. And I figured they had to have been close, because if I could hear them in this wind, they were close. So I just set up just on the edge of the ridge. I was on the very top of it. And it sounded like they were on the next bench down, or maybe even a little bit below that. And next thing you know, within 2 to 3 minutes probably, I saw a white head come up over the hill, then a second one. And I could see the second one's beard, and it was definitely a long beard. But the first one, just the way he was walking, I couldn't see it. And I passed them. They went through a lane about 60 yards out, and we're coming in on a string. Well, the second one somehow disappeared in this process, going behind a couple little jack pines. And the first one's still coming in, and he hit this opening about 45, maybe 50 yards. And had the bead right on his head, and I can't figure out if he's a longbeard. The way he was standing there, I couldn't see it, and he was facing straight at me, and just wasn't able to see it very good. And so I just kept waiting for him to give me, I let him go through that lane, which I was kind of kicking myself in the ass for, but better safe than sorry, I guess. And he ended up started heading back down over the hill, because he came up, he couldn't see where the hen was, me being the hen, and went back over the hill. And I did catch a glimpse of his beard at that point when he turned, and it was a long beard as well. So that kind of sucked, but they went over and they just gobbled their way away. And I figured I could come back for them later, or my best bet was just to keep moving, see if I could find some more birds. So kept moving out the ridge a little further, and something caught my eye as I was coming onto this flat, and I looked off to my left and I saw a head of a turkey. And I was like, all right, this isn't right. Why did this turkey not see me? So I pulled up my binoculars, and it was a decoy that was moving, and like 5 feet behind him was this guy laying up against a tree, smoking a cigarette. I mean, yeah, he fit the bill pretty good. So at that point, I don't think he saw me, and I was like, I need to get out of here. So I just slowly kind of creeped my way the way I came in, and I hiked back out to the truck. Guy must have came in from a different direction because I never saw his vehicle. But I got out, left, and drove to a whole nother spot, and I was running some ridges and calling, and I couldn't hear a thing, even if there was something gobbling. It was so windy. But yeah, that was kind of the first day, experience there. It was good as I should have been tagged out there first thing in the morning, but that never seems to happen for me anyway. So I'll just keep pushing on here. The season will go on further. Going to try to get out before work for, even a half hour if I can. And that's about it. So other than that, some other news is I got to try out a saddle this past week. I went up to Nick Berger and Allie DeAndrea's camp in about an hour away from where I live at in Pennsylvania here. And I had them on the podcast before, and Allie's better known as Outdoors Allie on social media and YouTube. But I was up there at camp, and they'd gotten a saddle from Tethered. It was so basically, if you're not familiar with a saddle, it replaces needing a tree stand. So you take sticks with you, as you would with a hang-on stand, climb up, put a little platform down, so you still have something to put your feet on, but it's really small. And then you're sitting from a harness that just goes around kind of your waist and your legs, and it's almost set up like if you were rock climbing, and you just lean into it. But I've always been kind of really skeptical of it and just didn't think I would like that style. Well, I messed around with it, and it was really, really interesting. I don't know if it would work for all situations for me, but I think it could be really good with a lot of practice, of course, and getting used to it and comfortable with it. So I think I'm going to get Greg Godfrey, I believe he's the owner of Tethered, on the podcast to really inform me a little bit more about, saddle hunting, and try to see if we can, drum up some ideas and how you'd use it, especially hunting the big woods and some other things and benefits with it. So be looking for some more information there. And as far as news goes, lastly, you have a few days left here to win the ebook from Team Bad Decision. So had these guys on the podcast a little while ago. Their book is now out. You can buy the paperback copy online or the ebook, and we're giving away one of these ebooks to one person at random who purchases any apparel products off of our website here in the month of April. So, basically you have today and tomorrow to get on there, check it out. Any apparel you like. We are fully in stock of everything except for the big decals right now. Getting those coming back in. But all the apparel's in stock. Check that out. The new hats, stealth hats, mountain buck shirts have turned out killer, and been getting some really solid feedback on those so far. So check that out, and let's get into the partners here of the podcast. So University of Elk Hunting, Corey Jacobson, Elk 101. I'm in the process right now of figuring out what I'm going to do for my 2019 elk hunting plans. I did not draw New Mexico, so Idaho is kind of on my list. And so I'm going through Corey's course. The first part is talking about planning and scouting. So right now I'm in the e-scouting mode. I think I have it narrowed down to a few units that I plan on going to, and been really going in there looking for the bedding cover, the food sources and the water, and I'm looking for those areas, which Corey goes through a really good explanation in this online course. But in addition to that, the course just covers everything when it comes to elk hunting, planning the hunt, during the hunt, after the hunt. It's very beneficial. So if you want to check that out, University of Elk Hunting, Corey's offering a 20% off code to all the East Meets West listeners. Just enter in code East Meets West at checkout, and you'll get yourself 20% off that annual subscription. So check that out. In addition, Heather's Choice. Heather has been, I've been using Heather's meals now since the beginning of my backcountry kind of adventures, from the standpoint of having gluten-free, dairy-free, healthy options that are full of fat and proteins that you need to, keep your energy up and build your body up for whatever endeavor that might be, outdoors or traveling. And recently they just came out with some new packaging for their popular packaroons, which are like a little coconut cookie. So they put them in single serving packets. And before, they came in a 2-pack, which was cool. I'd always eat one, kind of seal it up, eat the other one later. Now it's just in real small, lighter weight packaging, single serving bags. Check them out on the website. If you're looking to purchase anything, enter in code East Meets West to get yourself free shipping on orders over $99. And if your order doesn't hit $99, still use the link in our website. Check that out. Helps support the podcast as well. And lastly, Maven Optics. So Maven has come out with the highest quality optics, from binoculars, rifle scopes, spotting scopes, at half the price of their competitors through their direct-to-consumer business model. And their glass is second to none when it comes to edge clarity, low light performance, and some other things. I've posted up some videos of the low light performance of my B2 9x45s. You have to check that out, or if you want me to send it to you, just let me know and I'll get that over to you. So Maven's offering a code of East Meets West -gift. Enter that at checkout. Get yourself a free gift with any full price optics from their website. All right, let's get into this episode here with Christian Williams of Archery Strong. Thanks. All right, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast. And I'm joined here on the line in front of me on the video call, Skype, Christian Williams. Christian, what's going on, buddy?
Thrilled to be here. It's been a little bit of time since Bo and I have spent some time together and talked, and we've had some fun adventures thus far in our friendship. So happy to be reunited, that's for sure.
Yeah, I met Christian down at Bucks and Bows Archery when I worked there down by Pittsburgh, and instantly Christian and I kind of, hit it off, and people even joked that, that we had a man crush on each other, just messing around, because we just got along really well, and that's saying something, because not everyone gets along with me, but no, understandably with my sarcasm, but anyways, Christian and I I think it was through QDMA, I think, is how we originally met.
Yeah, that's right. That one night they got all the guys together when they were first talking about a branch, and like, who's this weirdo tickling me with his mustache? No, I was when you meet somebody and you just click with them, and that's definitely how it was. And I found it really interesting immediately. You were talking about where you hunted and how you hunted, your claim to fame, and I thought it was really cool. So yeah, I immediately wanted to learn more and know more, and yeah, we just took off.
And it didn't take long for you to realize that I was completely full of shit and didn't know anything about it. But yeah. But at that point, you were already my friend, so you couldn't back out on me.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, you're in. It's like, well, crap. I guess I got to just stick around and deal with this guy.
Yeah. So, and then we got into shooting leagues together, which was a complete treat. So Christian won the whole league because he's a really good shot, and then there's me, who's always partnered up with him, and I won the horse's ass award because I just mimic the animal sounds of everybody that's shooting at it. So
yeah, that was always interesting. I gotta say, someone brought it up the other night, how you and your animal sounds are missing this year in leagues. And I started to think about it. And this year I'm shooting even better in leagues. But I don't attribute any of that to me getting better as an archer. I think it's strictly the absence of those noises in my ear, in the purring. Oh gosh.
Yeah, whenever you shot the kitty cat, the bobcat, I'd make some purring noises and meowing and everything else in your ear. So like if anyone that it takes 3D shooting super serious, you do not want me in your group, because I'm that guy that makes it interesting. But we had such a good time. We'd always have fun and head down to Permane Brothers after, grab a couple beers, and it was a great time. I definitely miss that aspect of not living there anymore. That's for sure. Yeah,
we had a lot of fun, and I certainly miss you, and I know the other guys do too. They were speaking of that as well.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe I'll be down there again soon. Never know. But yeah, I just kind of float around, so you never know where I'll end up at. Maybe living with you and your girlfriend. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
I'll let you know.
Mate, that'd be great.
But anyways, so Christian, so now we got a backstory on how you and I met. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of your background and why I got you on the podcast here?
Yeah, sure. So my biggest love in the world is bow hunting, and I have a strong background in fitness and sports performance and human performance. I have a degree in exercise science, pursuing a master's degree as well. And the main thing that attracts me to bow hunting above everything else, there's a lot of great aspects of it, but out of everything else, it is the challenge of the pursuit to outsmart an animal that's equipped to avoid people like you and me, right? It's the depth of the challenge and all the variables and all the things that you have to take into account to make a strategy to be successful, and ultimately putting an arrow into the vital organs of whatever type of animal you're pursuing. So that's very quickly over the past half decade become a love for me. And it's also been cool to integrate my prior knowledge and interests and experience in the fitness realm and the human performance realm into bow hunting. I'll never make the case that I think you have to be physically fit to do basic style of archery hunting. But I think just as in the general experience of bow hunting and what it means to be a capable, well-rounded man or woman, I think the adventure and the pursuit of it wouldn't be given all it deserves if we didn't take into account, your physical condition or the mental component or just that whole big picture of what that looks like. So between my background in fitness and the love I've developed for bow hunting, that's been something that I've really been strongly pursuing, and I love the learning that occurs during it, as I know you do too. And it's, man, just what an awesome adventure outlet that we have to refine ourselves as men and refine ourselves as hunters and the whole gauntlet.
Yeah, no, that's a really good kind of overview of that, and again, that's why I guess you and I get along. We believe in that from the same standpoint, and even from the fitness realm. And I've said this before on the podcast. I don't believe you need to be in the best shape to be a hunter, but I can tell you what, it doesn't hurt. That's for sure.
No, it does not one bit, for sure.
No, and just an overall healthy lifestyle and longevity of being able to, partake in archery hunting and just shooting a bow in general, which kind of, leads into your business, Archery Strong, that we'll dive into here in a little while. But yeah. Along
those lines, just to brief those who are listening, I've worked in sports injury for about 4 years. I've coached various types of weightlifting and fitness for the past 7 years. And through that experience, I started to realize the need or the benefit that can come from injury prevention in archery and specific training for archery to become a better archer. So Archery Strong encompasses that and offers some training in that realm. So again, we'll touch on that later, but that just gives you a little bit of a tidbit or a lead there.
Yeah, and it's definitely a program that's way different than anything else on the market. And like I said, we'll dive into that, but just wanted to put that out there. It's different than just, fitness and hunting.
Yeah, sure.
So
sure.
It's just wanted to clear the water there a little bit. But so Christian, last year you were getting ready to go on your first elk hunt, and you and I were doing a little training, together, some, physical training. I got to go to your farm and go through one of your famous workouts and everything, and got the lungs burning a little bit. But and then you were just, brand new to it and decided you wanted to, go out west and try out elk hunting. Do you want to kind of explain that process for me here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had been really enjoying whitetail hunting and turkey hunting with a bow and groundhog hunting with a bow. Yep, that's right. You heard it correct. I've been enjoying those things for a number of years, and just based on the timing with where I was at with work and school and finances, I was in my basement working out one day, and I was like, what would be my reason not to go elk hunting this year or this coming September? I started to think about it, and I just took off with the idea from there. Thought about what that would entail, what would it involve, on my end. And the number one thing that I identified was that being a first-time elk hunter, not knowing much about it, I really wanted to go with someone that had some really strong experience. I wanted someone, not necessarily a guide, so not a guided hunt, but like a family friend that would take me under their wing, and I could go with them. They could teach me, would likely have some gear and just be my guide in a sense. And started to look through, some family friends, some close people that I had in my life that would be able to do that. And I came up with two people. And there's a gentleman, my dad's best high school friend, lives in Missoula, Montana. And nice guy. I'd met him before. I'd been out there fly fishing. And talked to my dad about it. And he said, yeah, I mean, if you were to go with someone, he's absolutely the guy to go with. He has 3 or 4 llamas or alpacas. I forget which they use out there. I
don't know the difference, so I can't even comment on that.
For personal llamas or alpacas, he's been hunting out there for decades. A lot of experience. His son, has had a lot of experience. So anyways, he was the guy to go to. So, but my dad said, hey, he tends to be a little bit loose with his plans. Not necessarily unreliable, but you just got to be careful. Make sure you pin him down and get commitments from him. So I called him up and told him what I wanted to do, and I said, hey Scott, you're welcome to take some time to think about this. If this is possible. I know I'm asking a lot. And he paused for about 2 or 3 seconds. He said, nah, why don't you come out here, buy a plane ticket, and we'll go elk hunting. I said, well, okay, that's that's awesome. That's awesome. It was a little bit funky to me that he didn't really put all that much time into thinking about that answer. But hey, I was going elk hunting as far as I'm concerned. So, I put in to draw a tag, which Montana isn't all that difficult to do. Fast forward a couple months, I'm training, which we can talk about here in a bit. But I'm training, I'm shooting, I'm getting ready, etc. And it's 2 weeks before I'm supposed to fly out to Missoula, Montana. And I'm coaching at the CrossFit gym that I coach at part-time. and I'm between classes, and I go over to look at my phone, and I've got a text message from this guy, Scott, and he accidentally sent me a text message that was supposed to go to his wife. And this text message was apparently a text that was involved in a marital fight that he was having. And the first sentence of the text message was, "I will be canceling Christian's elk hunt." So I'm just like, holy shit, what is this? I text him, trying to figure things out. He's apparently having marital problems while he is elk hunting for himself in the beginning of September. And, eventually figure it out, or eventually, we get in contact because he's in the mountains. It's hard to talk to him. And eventually we talk, we go back and forth, etc. And long story short, due to marital problems, he didn't do his homework, didn't ask his wife, I guess, didn't do what he needed to do to get this hunt ready, and hunt was canceled. That was it. So that's I guess maybe chapter 1 of the elk hunt. I'll give you a chance to respond to that, or
yeah. So that's that puts you in an extreme low. For one, to put it lightly, and it's crazy because I was elk hunting at the time when this all happened, and then I think I was coming back from my trip on like the 14th of September, somewhere around there, and I called you on my way home or something. I can't remember how that went, and you were like, "Dude, I'm not going on this trip." I'm like, "What?" And then you told me, and my heart sank. I felt so, because I know how much time you put into this and how much you wanted it.
Excited.
And yeah. But so that kind of leads into chapter 2. So what happened from there?
Yeah. So, obviously I was so excited for this trip. I had been putting tons of time. I mean, every single day training with my pack, having a ton of fun with the style of training that I was doing that I felt would best prepare me. Shooting every single day. I had been accumulating the equipment I thought I would need, from pack to archery equipment to clothing to, camp stuff, all that. And, here I am, shit out of luck with this trip. So, I made some efforts to reach out to an old guide friend I had out in Montana. Wasn't going to go. My sister's boyfriend reached out to his dad, who knew some guys. Wasn't going to work. It was just too late. 2 weeks before the season, it was just too late to make anything work. But one of my dad's other best friends, his name is Chris. Chris has a son. His name's Shane. Shane is also one of my best friends. They actually own 700 acres out in Wyoming. It is east of Casper, Wyoming, and this 700 acres borders the Medicine Bow National Forest, which is 35,000 acres of public ground. So, anyways, great friends of ours. They heard, or I think my dad may have mentioned to him, that my hunt got canceled, and they were going out to Wyoming to elk hunt 10 days or so from the time that they heard. So one of the most generous, gracious offers I've ever received. Chris reached out to me and said, "Hey, I heard what happened with your hunt. Unfortunately, you won't be able to hunt with us because you won't be able to get a tag, but we would love to have you come along with us and have you for the 8-day trip, the 6 days of hunting, and have you out there. You'll get to do absolutely everything with the experience except for draw and release the arrow." And at that point, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. I was unsure if I just wanted to stay home, whitetail hunt early season here in PA, save some money. But through talking to some different people, my girlfriend was a big influencer in encouraging me, and I decided, hey, yeah, I want to do this. What I was ultimately chasing for this was the experience. not the, Instagram picture, or not the, hoisting my bow up in the air after a kill, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to set myself up with somebody so that I could learn for the future. Like I said, my main goal was to get underneath somebody's arm and have them show me the ropes. And this was the second guy that was on my list for people I would love to go with. Chris is the most knowledgeable hunter that I know when it comes to whitetails, turkeys, elk. Just a phenomenal hunter, phenomenal guy, phenomenal family friend. He built our house when I was a little boy. My dad's been friends with him for a while. Anybody listening on video, my dad killed that whitetail that I'm pointing at there on his Iowa
Actually, we
farm.
won't. The video can't. It doesn't record the video, so they won't be able to see that. But
my dad has hunted with him in some different states. But anyways, just great guy, great family friend, and that's what led him to make me this offer, which was just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, and then so you just within 10 days are like, I'm going. Did you have to buy a plane ticket, or were they driving out?
Yeah, so within 10 days I had to get my shit together. They were flying out, so I bought a ticket, not on the same flight, but was able to fly out same day within a couple hours and land within a couple hours. And man, it was a whirlwind throwing it together, but I had everything I needed. I just needed to get my mind right, really. That was just the biggest thing, was get my mind right for what the experience was going to be. It was going to be a little bit different than I anticipated, but yeah, what was in store for me, I couldn't have asked anything more. I mean, I'll flat out say that week was the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life up to this point.
Yeah, and it's so tough to be able to explain that, like, from someone that hasn't done it. But anyone that's listening that's went through, their first elk hunt, or really anyone that had an amazing experience, they get it. It's so hard to explain, though. Like when I try to tell people that my first hunt out west, even though we didn't come home with anything, that it changed my life, it sounds dramatic, but it does. It does. And it's true. It's amazing. So what kind of experience did you have there in Wyoming hunting with Chris and Shane?
Yeah, an incredible experience. That's what I had. This area that we hunted, I can't speak a ton to the details because I don't know, but I do know that to draw an archery tag there takes, I think the number was like 7 or 8 years. I think as it stands now, it takes 7 or 8 years. It's known for some phenomenal bulls, a good elk population. So we were going to a great area. So we flew out. We drove for a while. They own it's an old cabin. It's actually interesting. It's an old cabin, a fine cabin, for talking about being out in the middle of nowhere. But this guy built this cabin as a doomsday shelter, is what this cabin was. It was as far out as this guy could possibly get so that he could have a place to go in the case of a doomsday, I guess. So Chris bought this place, and it took about 45 minutes on a very treacherous, sketchy road to get there. But, we drove in, we got set up in this little cabin. So no electricity, but it did have running water, and it did have a roof. No heating or anything like that. But, just having that was phenomenal, to be able to sleep in. That was a luxury. I don't have much to compare it to, but from what I know you've done and from what other elk hunters have done, it was an absolute luxury. So, I won't make the claim that it was, a brutal living situation or anything like that. I'll be upfront. I slept in a bed for those 6 days, which was just glorious, as you can imagine, after the long days that elk hunting offers.
Oh heck yeah, that's like better than gold right there. That's great.
Yeah, and what was so cool is that Basically how this worked is that 45 minutes on the dirt road drove through a cattle ranch. So you kind of have the cattle ranch, then you hit the 700 acres that's personally owned by Chris, and then surrounding that is the Medicine Bow National Forest, and then another one that I forget the name of. But basically, we had two options. We could either walk out the front door and start hunting the 700 acres of private and then the 35,000 acres of public, or we could drive to different parts of that 35,000 acres of public. So we had a ton of options. I mean, a ton of versatility. Hey, if we weren't on elk in one area, weren't hearing any bulls, we could bounce over to another area in the same day, which was just, again, a huge luxury. But the very first day was an incredible day. That very first day, we saw 7 different bulls. My dogs are running up in here now. We saw 7 different bulls. Didn't hear many bugles. Heard a couple. That morning we came up onto a ridge, kind of a little bit of a plateau on the top of a ridge, kind of an open area, and just very quickly saw 3 smaller bulls about 150 yards away. We weren't able to get onto those bulls. Covered a ton of ground, as you know how that works. Covered some grounds. We got...
Were you doing a lot of bugling, or were you just trying to glass them up? Or
yeah, we were doing a lot of bugling. Not many bulls responding though. So we were just covering ground. And after that first encounter, didn't have much going on until the early afternoon. We started going into some bedding areas, some dark, thick timber. And I'm trying to recall this. We were walking through some dark, thick timber early early afternoon, and very quickly we came upon a bull that I didn't see, but Chris was leading, and he said, "Whoa!" And about 50 yards ahead, he could see some tines of a bedded down bull in this timber. So Shane and I stayed where we were at. Chris drew back a little bit to cow call, I believe, if I recall correctly. And that bull kind of circled up above us, and he ended up busting us, and that was it for that bull. It wasn't a half hour later that we kind of were working through the timber. We came up onto a little bit of a meadow plateau area, and we're standing there just BSing, kind of thinking about what we want to do next. They're facing down the mountain from me, and I'm looking up the mountain, and all of a sudden I look up and I say, big bull. Standing there at 60 yards is a really nice bull, just standing there. And just like that, he winded us and he was gone. But that was so cool. I can just picture that so perfectly in my head, just popping out from behind a couple pines on this ridge. He was just standing there, just larger than life. Just absolutely incredible to see him that close. So that was a really, really cool encounter. Hunted a few more hours into the afternoon, and it got to be around 3 o'clock. And, we had been working through bedding areas, basically just waiting for these bulls to get back on their feet. And about 3 o'clock, we have about another hour or so until we figure that these bulls are going to be on their feet. So we're probably on the upper 2/3 of this mountain. We're on the public ground at this point. And we're on the upper 2/3, and we're walking along, and we see a pretty good elk trail, and 2/3 up the mountain. So Chris says, hey, why don't we'll sit down here and let's eat lunch and let's just wait for an hour, and then we'll get up and we'll start bugling, we'll start glassing. And so you figure if you're going to sit down, you may as well sit down in an area that has some pretty good sign that looks like could have some potential.
elky terrain.
Elky. Yep. Looks a little bit elky. And so we sit down on this trail, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. Chris tells his son, Shane, my friend, he says, "Hey, put an arrow in your bow just in case." What does Shane do?
Doesn't
does
put
not.
an arrow.
Oh, of course not. Why would you,
Yeah.
And we're sitting there hanging out. I think I was eating some peanut butter balls my girlfriend had made, and Mr. Caslick's just taking in the sights, cow calling a little bit. Shane's laying back on his backpack, so he's flat on his back, doesn't have his bow. And via his sense of smell, Chris, before he saw it, smelled this bull. And as soon as he apparently smelled this bull, this is a part I'll never forget. He turns to Shane and he says, the most intense whisper I've ever heard in my life. He says, "Put an effing arrow in your bow. Here comes a bull." And as soon as that last syllable came out of his mouth, at 25 yards, there's a bull standing on that trail staring at us.
Oh,
trying to figure out where that cow call was coming from. Just staring at us, and we're all just frozen. The wind's blowing right at us from that bull towards us, so wind's perfect, and it's fairly strong. And yeah, you can smell that bull for sure. But Chris smelled that bull, and as soon as he said that, that bull's just standing there, like, where's this cow at? And we're frozen. 5 minutes go by, bull hasn't moved. 10 minutes go by, bull hasn't moved, staring at us from 25 yards. 15 minutes go by, bull hasn't moved. I mean, we are just absolutely locked down, like just staring. And we weren't talking at all, so I didn't know what the thought process was. This was a nice bull. It was actually a 6x4. The side of 6 was really nice, beautiful. The side of 4 was really unique. It more so came out of this bull's forehead, like took a 90-degree turn so that it would travel back like a normal side would for an elk. Didn't have any eye guards, but had one big tine, and then had like a really cool, it almost looked like a trident at the end of the antler there. So a 6x4. And again, we weren't talking, so I didn't know the thought process, but Chris didn't think Shane was going to shoot it. And I'm sure Shane was thinking about it, while we were in that stalemate with that bull.
Yeah, you had some time to think, that's for sure.
Yeah. What was so unique about that is, like, how if you're whitetail hunting or you're elk hunting, like, you've got a big buck, you've got a big bull come up on you like that, and like you got to compose yourself, identify the situation, think about what's going on, all in a matter of seconds. Well, I mean, heck, Shane had 20 minutes or so to think about this, to think about what he wanted to do and what he needed to do to execute here. So, I think he eventually did decide that he wanted to take this bull, but he's flat on his back. He doesn't have an arrow in his bow. This bull is just like a statue. It's just unbelievable, going past 20 minutes of just standing there. So we were amazed with what that bull let Shane do. He, obviously moving very slowly knocked an arrow. Very slowly started to sit up. Very slowly start to turn. He's sitting on his butt with his legs out straight, started to turn a little bit to get into a position to shoot. Sometime around the 20-minute mark, 25-minute mark, that bull took a couple steps so that the whole time he was quartering at us really hard. I mean, he wasn't fully frontal, but he was quartering at us pretty hard. He took a couple steps so that he was still quartering towards us, but starting to expose himself more. At this point, Shane is now sitting up with his bow in his hand, and he's ready to draw. Again, the bull let him do that. Sometime around the 25-minute mark of this bull, it's just unbelievable to talk about now out loud. Sometime around the 25-minute mark, this bull took a few steps, so that's still slightly quartering, but now his lungs were exposed, no brush in the way, and when that bull took those steps, Shane drew. And it was a really tough position to shoot. You're on a downward slope. Shane's kind of leaning to his left on his butt, legs out straight. But he's at full draw, and he releases this arrow and thump, nails. Bull takes off, and he's running down through the timber. Shane definitely hit him. We weren't really sure where. Definitely hit him. Bull's running, crashing through some stuff. And like you, and like some of our listeners here, you hear that difference between when an animal's just running through the woods and then when an animal's crashing, right? Especially when you're talking about, a 800-pound
forest horse,
prehistoric forest horse, right? With trees coming out of its head, right? There's definitely a difference there. And I didn't have any prior elk hunting experience, but I've heard a lot of whitetails crash, and we listened very intensely for a couple minutes. And with limited experience, I really felt that bull had crashed just from what I had heard. Now, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing against or nothing wrong with being conservative and saying, well, I don't know if he really crashed. Not sure what we heard. So I definitely commend them for that. But I was confident, and with the uncertainty of not knowing where Shane had hit, we waited every bit of a half hour to even go look at where he hit. It was only it might have been a 28-yard shot. I think it was a 28-yard shot. But we waited every bit of a half hour even to just go look at the site. And then we waited a little bit more time after that. So I think it was about an hour that we started to look. And they started to find blood. And I'm colorblind, so I will very quickly admit that I am total ass at blood trailing. Up until this season, I have thankfully never had to blood trail a whitetail. I've killed two turkeys with a bow, and they've died within feet. Thankfully, I've never had to do it. Maybe that's my obsession with becoming the best archer I can be, but I cannot blood trail. So I wasn't even looking for blood just because there's no use. I can't see it unless I'm on hands and knees.
I'd be screwed at that point if I couldn't blood trail.
Yeah, it's rough. I'll tell you what, it's rough. So instead of blood trailing, I'm looking through my binoculars, and they're working along the blood trail. I'm slowly looking, through the timber, and I see a big light brown blotch ahead of us, maybe 75 yards. And I don't say anything because I don't want to give them a false report or anything, but we go a little bit farther. I got my binos on what I think is this bull. And we get to a point where I see antlers, I see the head, and I see, the body and the legs. And I said, hey guys, dead bull. And they looked at me and, they kind of perked up. And I said, yeah, I can see him here right through my binos. So, they pulled out their binos and they looked. And they said, I don't see him. And there he is. So, we were certain that bull was down. We went up, and it was awesome. It was really cool to not only come up on that bull, but just to watch Shane, and his dad come up on that bull and have that moment together. I know you have a good relationship with your dad, and I do with mine, and just sharing those hunting memories. So to be able to witness that, especially because Shane last year had wounded a bull on the first day, just like the hunt we were on. So I'm sure there was a lot of uncertainty and nervousness there. But yeah, just watching that was just so cool. I'll never forget. Shane was, looking at his bull, kind of moving the antlers, and his face was relatively, blank's not the right word, but just wasn't showing a ton of expression. And it wasn't until he looked at his dad and his dad said, "Good job, Shane. Awesome bull, Shane." His face just lit up. And it was just a really cool moment to see, how I think all of us guys want approval, from our dads or from our fathers. And especially, with Shane and Chris, but, probably for a lot of our listeners and for you and I, what a monumental moment when you kill a nice bull elk or any bull elk with your bow, with your dad there. I mean, I can't think of many other things that would be the climax of making your dad proud. You know what I mean? I can't think of many other things. Yeah, in the high mountains of Fire Canyon, Wyoming, Shane takes down a nice bull with his dad right there. Yeah, it was just awesome. So that was the hunt and the kill, and that was just all the first day. My goodness, it was just it was an incredible first day. Talk about a terrible representation of what elk hunting with a bow is like, right?
A banner day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, what you're saying though, just to kind of recap about like that experience, with your father, it was for me that was my first archery buck that I killed. My dad, I was out by myself and I missed like 2 or 3 deer. Literally, this is no joke, like nice bucks. And everyone just kept saying, "You're so lucky. Like, how are you doing this?" And I had this spot. I'm like, I'm telling you, this is like the rut zone. I had to take hip waders across this creek and go in there. And my dad's like, "You know what? I'll go with you. It's the last day." We go in and my dad climbs a tree behind me, and I use my climber and go up the one tree. I'm sitting over this scrape on this railroad grade that runs next to this creek, and like 45 minutes before dark, I just was doing some blind grunting, and I heard a grunt back and come running up. I hear crashing coming through. This buck comes out. I mean, hits the scrape. I knew it was 25 yards on. I drew. I shot, and after having all these bad shots because I couldn't control myself, I was never more focused, and I watched that arrow just bury behind the shoulder, perfect. And I just turned around to my dad and just gave the double fist pump, and I was like, I had to hold on to the tree. I thought I was gonna fall out. Yeah. And he got to see that. We didn't see the deer crash, but he didn't go very far, and it was one of my biggest whitetails in Pennsylvania even to date, and my oldest one. And
I remember that picture.
Yeah, that old one from high school. It was that 8.5-year-old chocolate rack, whitetail, and awesome. that experience was like, and I'm sure like he was extremely proud of getting to be there with it. I didn't really understand the significance of it at the time. I was young, I was in high school and stuff, but I'm sure it was that way. We had to float the deer across the creek to get it back, and it was just super cool. But yeah, I just figured I'd add that little piece in there.
Yeah, I mean, just incredible memories. I mean, I think something like that sticks with you forever. That's something that's just monumental in a man's life and a boy's life for the father and the son. Mm-hmm. Whether we're talking about elk hunting or talking about, your whitetail kill there. Or when you were talking, I was just thinking back to a memory I had with my dad. This just really sticks out to me. My dad's been proud of me throughout my life, but I'll never forget this.
I don't know for what, but sorry.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know, but I've lucked out. But I'll never forget. We were down near Seven Springs, which is just outside of, or just east of Pittsburgh, along the Appalachian Mountain Belt, and we were four-wheeling. and there was like a foot of snow, and my dad was leading up ahead with, I think my mom on the four-wheeler, and I was behind him with one. We're going up this really challenging ravine with deep snow and everything. And I guess I put it all together with, throwing it in four-wheel drive. And I was young, so I was, not the most experienced, but threw it in four-wheel drive and used the locking differential, stood up, got on the front end of it, really trying to plow the front wheels down into the snow to get through, and, flying up this hill up to my dad. And I can't remember what he said, but I just remember him, saying awesome job, or he was really proud of that, or that was really cool. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
It was really,
yeah, because that's like, something that like you teach, I remember like when I was learning four-wheelers, my dad would be like, oh, you lean into the hills, or you do this or that,
exactly.
and he's like, all right, it worked out. And the only sad part about that story is that's the last time he was proud of you.
Yeah, I know, man. That was like, probably 15 years ago.
Oh, it wouldn't be a conversation with me and you if it wasn't digging into each other. So
No, yeah, never. I try to be nice to you, but you're just a jerk back, so I roll with it.
I can't help it. It's just
but,
who I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you got the bull down at this point, and did you help in the process of breaking it down and quartering it to pack it out?
Yeah. I was kind of like the side guy. I didn't do any of the quartering myself. They handled that, but I was filling up the game bags with the meat and everything, and getting that all ready. It did use my Gerber knife though, so I was an important part of that process.
There you go. You're the secretary or the assistant surgeon there. Yeah.
So we got everything packed, and I was running a Stone Glacier pack that I was really happy with. Shane was running a Kuyu pack. And Chris, if you knew him, you would know that he was running a 20-year-old backpack.
Yeah.
So we figure that Shane and I had about 80 or 90 pounds on both of our backs. I had all meat, which was comfortable. Shane had the head and antlers as well as some meat, and then Chris had a little bit of meat. And like I had mentioned to you, we killed this bull like 2/3 the way up this mountainside. So we had about pretty constant movement. We spent about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours packing this bull out. So I don't know the distance. It was a couple miles. It wasn't anything crazy. But I sure as heck we both felt the 80 or 90 pounds on our backs. And it was a tough physical challenge, but just such a monumentally
rewarding.
Yeah, is a great word for it. I mean, just the culmination of, the hunt, the adventure out there, the hunt, killing this bull, packing it up, quartering it out, packing it up. And it's just like, it's like the, I don't know, it's like the victory walk, after the win.
Yeah.
Or something. And it was just so cool. It was a beautiful day. Just reminiscing as we're walking and talking back and forth. And was just a ton of fun. And what was cool is we were racing daylight, which was neat because he killed this bull. We didn't get to it until like 4:30 or so, quartering it, packing it up. It was like 5:30. It was going to get dark at like 7 or 7:30, I think. And so we were racing daylight. And I mean, at this, that morning, I think I had mentioned, we walked right out the door and started hunting. So we were just walking back to the cabin. And we truly did not have an ounce or a speck of daylight left when we hit those back doors. It was just perfect timing. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah, what a comfortable position to be in as far as like when you get back though to know you're at the cabin. Like you didn't even have to just get to the truck and have to drive back or to a tent or anything. Like you get back to this cabin and you can unload and just be like, yes. There was there was some food there, and to get back to that, the comfort of the cabin was awesome.
what was really cool, and I want to mention it before I forget, what was one of the coolest parts about this hunt is we had flown out there, and Shane and Chris weren't all that concerned with keeping the meat for themselves. So what we did that very night, as soon as we got back, we took all of the meat except a little bit of the backstrap that we were going to have for dinner that night. We took all of the meat, and Shane and I, in this little pickup truck, drove 45 minutes out of the mountains on that risky dirt road to the rancher's house that Shane and Chris are good friends with. And we got there, and we hung up the meat, and we talked to him. We said, explain, the situation, the hunt and everything. And Shane and Chris had made the decision that they wanted to give the meat to somebody who could really utilize it and enjoy it and really needed it. So the rancher did some talking and made some phone calls, and they found a local family. The rancher found a local family where the father is struggling and fighting with Alzheimer's, or not Alzheimer's, I'm sorry, with Parkinson's disease, and the son also had a very difficult illness that he was dealing with, and we were able to donate 99% of that meat to that family, which was just awesome. From the perspective of, we were so blessed that day with that hunt and with the experience to be able to give back to somebody and give to someone in need, especially because, we went out and we did the work and we put in all the time and the effort. That was just such a cool experience. And, there's, few things I think that could be of more value than that with that meat. So that was really neat, to harvest an animal that, God created and give it to some people that needed it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a good ending to it, as far as, like you said, when the rewarding part of packing it out, I'm sure that even added to that rewarding feeling, being able to, like you said, give to that family, which I'm sure was extremely grateful for that. Yeah,
it was awesome. It was really cool, and I commend, Chris and Shane for doing that. They didn't even think twice about it. It was really neat for sure.
That's good. How was the backstrap that you had?
Oh man, just phenomenal. We fired up this old grill that this doomsday prepper had at the cabin that he left there. Fired up the grill, cooked it under a headlamp, sat down at the kitchen table there in the cabin with Shane and Chris, and I asked if I could say a little prayer, and so said a little prayer and dug in, and it was just phenomenal. And by the time we ate it, it was every bit at 10 o'clock, I think, that we hadn't eaten any food or anything at that point. We had made that drive out to the rancher's house and driven all the way back.
Well, that damn bull ruined your lunch. You're in the process of eating, and he came in.
I'm in the middle of peanut butter balls and a stinky bull on the trail looking at us.
Yeah.
But so oh man, it tasted phenomenal. I mean, to be able to consume an animal that was thriving in the mountains of Wyoming a couple hours before that, and be able to eat it right there was incredible.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, the crazy part is, thinking about it, that thing was walking around and, living its life, hours before you're eating it at the table. And that's not many people get to experience that. If you're not a hunter, you don't get to, that's, the big movement with knowing where your food comes from. I think you figured that out.
Yeah. Down to a T, we figured it out. It was a really, really cool experience. I've done that with whitetails and turkey. Not yet groundhogs, although I do plan that this year. But it was really cool to do it in that that environment and in that atmosphere for that situation. It was just very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you just mentioned there recently groundhogs, whereas I don't know if you dubbed it or Rick or someone dubbed it the ground grizzly.
Yeah, I love that. That'll stick.
Yeah, I got to experience groundhog hunting with you this past summer, and it was so much fun. And one, it was humbling because things were jumping by arrows.
Yeah, we lost some arrows that day.
Yeah, definitely did. And we were shooting anywhere from 12-yard shots out to 70, and oh man, was that fun. So explain your obsession and the reason for hunting groundhogs before people are like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, what is this? So, and it's hunting groundhogs with a bow. We will specify. At this point, I've killed around 250 groundhogs with a bow, and I've never killed a groundhog with a gun.
And that's been in like 3 years, right?
Yep. So I've been doing it for 3 years, hunting groundhogs with a bow for 3 years, and killed 250 so far. It sounds so dumb to say. But yeah, so it's an obsession. I absolutely love it. By the time whitetail season is over here in Pennsylvania, I am so ready to be walking fields and wood lines on local Pennsylvania farms for groundhogs. So the story goes that a number of years back, I had been competing in CrossFit, and I'd come to a point for various personal reasons that I decided I wanted to pull back on that. So I had a rower, a nice Concept 2 rower, if anyone's familiar with that, in my basement that I had bought to train for competitions. And with getting out of competitive CrossFit, I decided to sell that rower. So I got $800 for it, and just starting to think, what is something that I could do that I could replace my my effort and my pursuit that I had in CrossFit. What's something that I could do that I could
would kind of fulfill that void.
Exactly, fulfill that void. And truthfully, I didn't put that much thought into it. One day I was like, you know what? I love the outdoors. I love to hunt. I've been hunting and fishing all my life. I think I want to buy a bow. So I started to look a little bit online, mentioned the idea to my dad, and he was thrilled because, the more a dad sees his son get into hunting, the better. They love that. And I stopped down at our local archery shop, Bucks and Bows Archery, here outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I just went in, and it was the end of the workday, and talked to one of the guys there for 15 minutes. And I said, I'll come back, and I'll, when there's more time, and put some more intense looking into this. So I did. I ended up getting a bow and just started shooting. In my backyard. Just every single day, it was shooting. After a couple weeks, it was July now at this time. So I bought the bow in June, and I was sitting at my kitchen table at my dad's house where I'm at now. And I said, Dad, I think I'm ready to hunt. And he said, well, it's July. I don't know what you're going to hunt. And he started to think, and he kind of had a smirk on his face because he knew what it was going to entail. And he said, oh, you could try hunting groundhogs with a bow, which to my knowledge, I don't think many people do that. I don't, from the conversations I've had and looking around, I don't see many people doing that. So I said, yeah, sure. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was getting into. I just went out on some farms I had permission to and just started walking around with my bow. And I quickly realized how intensely hard it is to kill a groundhog with a bow. I mean, I didn't even get within bow range of a groundhog for like 10 straight hunts. And eventually, on my favorite place in the world, a little farm in Mars, Pennsylvania, one night towards the end of the evening, I was able to, as my dad would say, I was able to draw blood for the first time with a bow. And the challenge of it, I was just absolutely enthralled by it. I mean, it was just the coolest thing in the world to me. And I very quickly just became obsessed with it. Talk about the ultimate teaching tool or learning experience is hunting groundhogs with a bow. Everything from learning how to stalk, considering your background when you're stalking, considering, is there wind that day? Is there not wind that day? Is there extra movement in the environment so I might be able to stalk a little bit closer? When can I stalk? When should I stay still? What effect is the sunlight having on this? The groundhog hole in relation to where it is, how can I best approach it? I mean, I could talk for so long about all the variables, but it's just an absolutely phenomenal teaching tool is the number one benefit. Number two, it offers an opportunity to bow hunt during the months that there's not many other things to bow hunt. There are a plethora of opportunities to bow hunt groundhogs because they're on most farms, and they're one of the few animals that benefits from human expansion, meaning that groundhogs don't typically thrive in wooded areas. So as humans develop fields and they plant crops and they expose greens and more suitable habitats from groundhogs, they really flourish. So there's many opportunities, and on top of that, landowners are much more likely to give you permission to hunt groundhogs than they are to hunt even turkeys or especially deer. You know, many hunters know that it's hard to get permission on properties for deer hunting. So if no other reason than to get permission of properties, groundhog hunting is the way to go, because you know what you essentially do is there's a low barrier to entry as far as getting permission to hunt groundhogs on a farm or on a property. You develop a relationship with a farmer. I try to give back to farmers as much as I can as far as baling hay. I've helped a number of farmers bale hay. I will just voluntarily go pick up trash around farms for farmers and just offer to do anything else I can. And really just become friends with them. I've really developed some good friendships with these farmers. And that, again, opens the opportunity to hunt other things, to have land, to hike on, shed hunt on, explore, learn about habitat, learn about wildlife. And it definitely develops your skill, and it's truly an art to knock on someone's door, introduce yourself, explain who you are, explain what you want to do and why you want to do it. And I've been so blessed here in Western Pennsylvania that I'm proud to say that I live in a somewhat rural area, but I can walk out my back door and I have free reign over about 500 acres, half a dozen different farms. That's just out my back door, let alone driving 5 to 10 minutes from my house and having a lot of other properties. And most of that has been a result of getting permission to hunt groundhogs with my bow, and again developing that relationship, and then it just expands from there. So it's been really cool, and again I've been blessed and I've put in the time. You know, a lot of people have a bad mindset about, you know, it's hard to get permission on private property and this and that sort of thing, which is true. But if you're a respectable hunter and you go about it in the right way, and you have a friendly personality and you approach it the right way, it will happen if you put in the time and you knock on the doors. So that's just opened up so many opportunities for me, in addition to just it being an absolute blast to hunt these animals with a bow.
And the farmers like when you shoot the groundhogs too, right?
Yes. So it definitely is a benefit to them too. So, sometimes people are like, well, you kill these animals and I don't eat them up to this point. It's the only animal I kill that I don't eat. But it's very, very important to understand that agriculture and farming is vital to our society, right? It's where we obtain a lot of our food. And these farmers are some of the hardest working people you'll ever meet. A lot of our listeners know that. And groundhogs are a major problem to farmers for a couple of reasons. Number one, they eat their crops. Groundhogs eat a ton. I've seen holes on farms, like on the edge of a soybean field, and you can take a radius of 30 yards around their hole, and everything will be absolutely mowed down from just the 1 or 2 or 3 groundhogs that live in that hole. So they eat the farmer's crops. The holes are treacherous for farm equipment because the holes disrupt the support system of the ground underneath because of the excavated dirt and the space and the air that now occupies that layer of ground. So whether they collapse or the hole gives way, I've seen it where they flip farm equipment. And then lastly, those holes can pose big issues for livestock as well, where if an animal, a cow or a horse, steps into those holes, they can break their leg. And in the case of a horse, if a horse breaks its leg, majority of the time that horse has to be put down, it has to be euthanized because the nature of a horse and how much it stands, it can't function with a broken leg. So it's a very serious problem. And I've hunted on a couple of horse farms. The farm I killed my first groundhog on was a horse farm, and that landowner was thrilled to have me there to kill as many groundhogs as I could. So no, I do not eat them, and I don't like that, which was my point that I'm going to try it this year because I think I owe it to the groundhog, and I don't believe it would be that bad if cooked and prepared correctly. But I don't like the fact that I don't eat them, but I do believe it is necessary to control the population of an animal that totally breeds and reproduces exponentially. The main farm I hunt near my house of an awesome old farmer. This farm is, we'll say 200 acres for ease. I would put a very strong level of confidence in saying that this farm, over the 200 acres, this farm easily has 500 groundhogs on it. That farm itself, not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, I killed over 100 groundhogs on that farm alone. So point being that they are a problem. And from the farmer's perspective, it is necessary to control them, and they don't want them there.
Yeah. And so for everyone listening to this, if you don't know Christian or anything else, he's an extremely, good archer, and he's not going to sit here and say this himself. But for someone that hasn't been involved in the sport for very long, I mean, very talented, and he owes it a lot. I mean, he practices every day, whether he's hunting groundhogs or not, but to hunting groundhogs because of the precision needed to kill these animals. One, they're extremely tough. Two, they're just quick, and you know,
they're very hard to kill. You don't think of a groundhog as a smart animal or having good instincts, but if you don't believe me when I say this, go out and try it yourself. They are extraordinarily quick. I have groundhogs regularly duck arrows by dropping back down their hole under 20 yards, within 20 yards, closer than 20 yards. They will duck arrows. They're extraordinarily tough because the way that they've evolved, the backside of a groundhog, its fur and its hide and its rib cage is extraordinarily thick, because that is the way that most of their predators will try to or come at them from or kill them, right? Because a groundhog lays or basically it moves or lays on flat on its stomach, so its back is exposed. So whether a bird of prey tries to come down and grab them, or a coyote jumps on top of them, or whatever it may be, you really can't. It's very hard to kill them from their backside if they were looking away. So essentially, you either have to shoot them in the head or the neck, or a relatively effective shot is to the chest. But by and large, you can compare the kill zone of a groundhog to a pear.
Yeah.
A pear. And to hit a pear from 20 yards, not challenging. 30 yards, definitely more challenging when the groundhog is moving. And beyond that, I mean, it's very difficult. And especially because I've put many shots on groundhogs where I've hit them in the neck, or even hit them, in the side of the head or the side of the chest, that if that arrow doesn't hit vitals, that groundhog's not going down. And even if you do hit vitals, our local bow shop can speak to this comment that those groundhogs will fight to the death to get back down their hole. That's their place of security. And the local bow shop knows how many arrows I purchase from March to August, because they truly will escape down the hole with my arrows. I've had groundhogs, as soon as I hit them, if you've ever seen a coyote be shot, they quickly try to nip at that spot. Groundhogs will do the same thing. I've had groundhogs. I remember vividly, I shot a groundhog from 30 yards. It was at the edge of a barn. The hole was going underneath a barn. And I shot that groundhog right in center mass, right in its lower chest. And that groundhog flipped over on its back, and within seconds of me running to it, that groundhog had chewed my gold tip in half, completely in half. They are just so tough that their will to survive, their will to live, and their toughness, their tenacity is just totally at the top of the charts. I always, when I shoot a groundhog, Bo, this, when I shoot a groundhog, I run at it. Yeah. I run with my bow in my hand. I look like a madman, because they will either get back down their hole, or they will chew that arrow up, or whatever it might be. So I try to get to that groundhog as quick as I can. I either try to grab the arrow and hold the groundhog with the arrow. I also have a pair of boots that are chewed up, because sometimes I'll step on the groundhog and shoot an arrow straight down at my foot, point blank, to finish him off. I've never hit my foot. My dad yells at me, but I've never hit my foot. But yeah, just the point being that, yeah, they're tough animals. They're challenging animals to not only hunt, but to kill. Last season, I took my girlfriend along with me for the first time she'd ever been hunting. And God bless this girl, she's got ice in her veins, because one groundhog in particular, I had to put four arrows in to kill this groundhog. I shot it once, it started running around. I shot it again, it was trying to run back to its hole. Shot it again, and a final time I shot it. And it needs to be known that, I mean, these shots were from 10, 15 yards away, and they were in the vital organs, so to speak. They're just, incredible.
That's awesome. It's so crazy. It's funny to talk about, and especially since I experienced it with you. I think I went a couple times, and it is just so tough. And you were trying to help me out. You let me take the shots first. We'd be I remember one in this one field right down the road from your house. I think it was actually behind your dad's house, and I think that's what it was. But anyways, it was 70 yards across this field. Yeah. And I'm my arrow's going perfect. It was in slow-mo, and that groundhog was in its hole before my arrow was even halfway there.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible.
Remember that? My arrow was sticking right in the hole. And he was.
I remember it exactly. That spot is 100 yards from me right now where I sit, where I made that shot. Oh man.
Yeah, so
they're amazing. One other story about an individual groundhog. It's like we're talking about, bucks, like target bucks, target groundhogs. The guys at the bow shop were joking with me, do you have a hit list yet for the groundhogs you want to kill you? But I had my first season that I did this. I remember I was in a field not too far from my house, and 38-yard shot. This groundhog standing up on its hind legs, facing me, and I had stalked, trying to keep this little hump between me and the groundhog until I couldn't get any closer. I slowly stood up. Groundhog's facing me. I hit that groundhog square right in the chest, about 2 inches below his throat. So, I mean, a perfect shot. And I run up there. Dang it, wouldn't you know, that groundhog made it back down the hole with the arrow. I come back the next day. Wouldn't you know, that little bugger threw my arrow out of the hole.
Are you serious?
Yeah, the arrow was laying right outside its hole, kind of saying like, yeah, you didn't get me. Oh, it's just crazy.
Oh, that's funny, man. Yeah, that's I've been wanting to talk to you about this for a while, and actually to to give everyone a perspective here. Excuse me, Christian and I, he was going to be my first podcast. Like, you and I were supposed to record one day at your house, and then we ran out of time or something, and then with your business and stuff going on and getting prepared for elk hunting, I was like, let's wait until after the season to really get the story on this, and because I've been wanting to talk about groundhogs ever since we hunted them together, but finally we got to link up here and get to talk about that. So that's sweet, man. So let's talk a little bit about Archery Strong. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but what is it?
Yeah, so Archery Strong is a sport-specific and sports performance and sport injury approach to archery. If you look at all other sports, whether it be golf or soccer or baseball or hockey or football, whatever it is, all of these sports are now utilizing sport-specific training for the purpose of becoming better at your sport, right? So you can be generally fit. You can run. You can do push-ups. Excellent. And you're somewhat fit. Now, is doing running or push-ups going to make you better at baseball or football or archery? Yeah, probably a little bit. You could make a case for saying that there's going to be some attributes you're going to develop that would help you in those respective sports. But we've now come to the realization that if we focus on specificity or training specifically for the components of that respective sport, we can really boost performance. So as I mentioned earlier, I have a long background in fitness, sports injury, and sports performance. So really where the idea came from is groundhog hunting, wouldn't you know it. I started to realize, hey, these animals are really hard to kill, number one, so I need to be a good shot and make ethical, lethal shots. And number two, I'm shooting every day, whether it's to practice, whether it's to hunt. I don't want to have issues arise because I'm shooting so much. So what can I do from a sport-specific training perspective to prevent issues and injury in my shoulders, as well as improve my accuracy in archery? So I took the knowledge that I have from my work experience and my college education, and I started to just play with some things and test some things. And what I started to find is that my shoulders were feeling better than ever. I wasn't having any issues whatsoever. My accuracy was increasing because I was improving my stability in my aiming. I was improving my endurance, for which I could shoot longer in my practice sessions. I was more stable at longer yardages. All these different variables I could improve by doing things that were specific to the muscular stability that I needed, the repetitive muscular recruitment, the development of the really specific fine motor skills within the nervous system that are required to shoot a bow accurately and shoot a bow accurately with consistency, most importantly. Many good archers can shoot a few arrows or a number of arrows with consistency, but you quickly fatigue, right? You start to fatigue, your form breaks down, your stability starts to decrease, you start to get more unstable when you shoot, and I could combat that with this specific training. So what I started to do is develop specific protocols for two things. Number one, relieving pain if you have pain, and preventing injury if you don't want to have injury. That's one side. So we'll say that's the sports injury side, and then the sports performance side is boosting accuracy and stability and muscular endurance when you're shooting to improve your shooting performance. So you have that performance side, and then you have that sports pain / injury side. And I put together some programs that I tested, had some other archers go through them, and now Archery Strong is my business that I offer those programs to prevent pain, relieve pain, prevent injury, and improve shooting performance through the use of archery specific training.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy to see, because like when you started this, you and I were starting our businesses at the same time, and we were going through it, and you were telling me it, and I'm like, you know what, I've never heard of anybody else taking, there's a lot of hunting fitness type companies out there now, but this was completely different. And I know from just, again, when I worked at the bow shop, and even now knowing people, you've helped a lot of people that weren't even able to shoot a bow anymore because of, shoulder pain or whatever, be able to do that and not have to pick up a crossbow or whatever else. Exactly. And that's really cool to be able to see, your programs be put in place. And I've talked to other people that I've known that just did it from the performance side through you, and like, Nick Schnur and some others that are from down the shop and have had great results. So that speaks a lot from that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, the ultimate goal with this, beyond, hey, let's improve your ability to shoot at X's or, make vital shots on a whitetail or whatever, and beyond relieving pain. To me, bow hunting has become potentially the most exciting and valued passion that I've done in my life. I've seen so many benefits from it, whether it be from how much it's refined the way I learn about things, to the opportunities it's exposed me to for adventure, to how it's refined my discipline and my commitment and my problem solving skills, all those different things. It's led me to awesome relationships, like, mine with yours, even though you make fun of me a lot. Bow hunting's just given me so much, and I want to do everything I can to make sure that, number one, other people never have bow hunting or archery taken away from them. And then number two, do whatever I can to allow people to get the most out of their archery experience that I can. And my expertise and my experience in the sports injury and sports performance world is a way that I can make sure that, like you said, someone never has to put down their bow, never has to pick up a crossbow, and can always enjoy archery and can always enjoy archery hunting and the adventure that it offers. Because again, there's just so much to be gained from it, from an archery perspective, from a relationship perspective, and from just the development of a well-rounded, capable human being. Archery's just been phenomenal. I want to make sure that everyone gets to experience that in full capacity.
Oh, for sure. And so you have programs available that people can take a look at. And as far as, I know you have like personalized ones that you build for people, correct?
Yep.
And for what their goals are. And then also you have some other ones that people can purchase online to go through through these. So what are the different types of programs that you do have?
Yeah, so right now we have 4 different things that we offer. The first and most popular one is the pain relief and injury prevention program. So that's for somebody who has pain in their neck, shoulders, or arms when they shoot archery. And it's for someone who, even if you don't have pain, it does a great job of reinforcing the joints and the muscular components that you need to shoot without injury. So basically, our catchphrase is we want to build bulletproof archers. And so that's the first most popular program. The other popular program we have is a archery performance program that has a little bit of injury prevention in it, but largely focuses on building the components you need to have maximum stability when you're aiming, to increase your draw strength, and to be able to handle your draw strength over a number of arrows. It's going to help you maintain your stability and maintain your muscular composure and your form and your technique over those longer shooting sessions. So that's a performance side of archery. We also have a whitetail program that mixes in a little bit of injury prevention, a little bit of performance work, as well as some fun shooting challenges. And then lastly, like you mentioned, we have the customized training programs, which can be tailored to any goal that you want to have. We specialize, again, in the pain, injury prevention, and performance side of archery. So we write a lot of programs specific to someone's individual needs, abilities, goals with that custom training. But we also have had some clients prepare for Western hunts and adventure hunts and mountain hunts through more like specific strength and conditioning. So again, there's a lot of awesome programs out there for that. And although that's not our main focus, we do offer that customized training, because as great as some of those programs are, they don't always take into account what your needs are, what your abilities are. You know, can you do a pull up? I had a guy who couldn't even do a lunge, so we had to find ways around that. Also, hey, what equipment do you have? Some of these programs may assign you things that you're not able to do at your gym or at your house. So I always have a conversation with those people and talk to them, and again, talk about, what are you looking for in a program? What's your availability? How much do you want to do? What are your goals with this program? And then I can formulate a program specific to those things. So we also offer that too.
Awesome. And then also on your Instagram page, so it's archery.strong. Is that what it?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's archery.strong that you can find us at.
Yeah, and that has a lot of helpful, tips and everything on there. I mean, you're putting up almost daily, if not daily, information on there with cool looking, as far as the photos, pointing to things, explaining, the way that you're, again, I'm not knowledgeable in the exercise side of it, so my terms might be off, but just the way, like, as far as your muscles work together and everything else, to be able to do that. So there's a lot of free content out there that you're providing, and then hopefully you find some great information from that, and may want to check out some of his other more specific training needs online. So yeah, so like we said, it's archery.strong on Instagram. And then the website is www.archery-strong.com that you can find us at as well. That there's you can find the programs and a way to contact me through both Instagram and the website. Yep. Awesome. Well, Christian, hey, I'd really appreciate you coming on the podcast here and talking. Is there any final thoughts that you have on your mind that you want to get out?
I would say, to sum it all up, do things that are going to challenge you. Go on adventures. Try groundhog hunting. You'll learn a ton. You'll have a blast. You'll gain some access to some farms for other hunting and outdoor activities. And yeah, there's just so much to learn out there. And that's what I love about this podcast, is that it offers another excellent resource to gain some insight on things that we can all benefit from learning, whether we're brand new like I was to this elk hunt this year, or whether you've never hunted groundhogs or you've killed more groundhogs with a bow than me, contact me if that's true.
Christian's highly competitive, so if you say that, it might hurt his ego a little bit, and he's going to have to outdo you, and he probably will, so watch what you say.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Well, awesome, Christian. Again, thank you very much for, scheduling some time here to sit down and talk to me, and it's always a pleasure to talk.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, brother. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. You're doing great things over there at East Meets West Hunt.
Yeah, well, thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.